Hey everyone, I'm Jaden,
And I'm Noah.
and we are the Super Gamer Bros, and this is the Super Gamer Bros podcast.
We're just a couple of brothers who love playing games and love talking about games, so that's what we're going to do.
So today, we're going to be talking about Grim Fandango. Grim Fandango was developed by LucasArts and released on Windows on October 30th, 1998. The game received great reviews and managed to garner a pretty sizable cult following by combining LucasArts' iconic adventure game formula with noir-style storytelling in a Day of the Dead themed setting. Now, neither of us played this game in its initial release, both because we didn't own PCs at the time, and also because the game came out the year I was born, and Noah was 1.
That's right. A lot of people didn't play it at release, though.
That is correct.
Mm-hmm.
I believe I looked it up and it was said that that LucasArts thought it was a commercial failure.
Yes,
or at least it did not.
Well.
It did not. I don't think they said it was a failure necessarily, but at the very least, it did not meet their expectations.
Right.
But it did, like I said, garner a cult following, and we played the re-release of it, the remastered version released on the PlayStation 4 in 2014, after Sony had helped Double Fine Productions, who made games such as Psychonauts and Brutal Legend, acquire the license after LucasArts was closed by Disney, which Double Fine was founded by Tim Schafer, who was both the creator of Grim Fandango, and he was a lead, very high up person at LucasArts.
Yes, he also created Psychonauts, right?
Yeah. Psychonauts.
Legend.
Yes.
He loved Grim Fandango.
He did.
Yes.
It's one of his, I think, proudest achievements in terms of game making.
Mm.
But all that being said, despite never playing the game, I always knew about it.
Mm.
Like, anytime the game was referenced on like top 10 lists or was mentioned by someone in a Let's Play I was watching, which was a lot because people who played the game loved the game, I'd always think, yeah, I know that game. Like, I've heard of that. And I could always picture kind of like the people, like the skull kind of look like of the people. So I was really excited to play it when I discovered it was on PS4. And I think it was a free PlayStation Plus game at some point, or if not, we somehow got it for free because I don't think I actually bought it.
I think it was a PlayStation Plus.
Yeah, I just remember one day looking through my library for a game to play, and I saw that, and was like, oh, I didn't know I owned that.
Yes,
playing that.
The cover makes it look really cool.
Yeah, really good cover. So, the game came out over 20 years ago. A huge jump back from God of War.
Right.
But if you still haven't played it, and you want to, I'm still going to put a spoiler warning here, because even though I didn't play it till probably 2016, 2017, I actually knew nothing about the story.
Right, yeah, exactly. And for a game that's 100% about the story, there's no, amazing combat or gameplay.
Yeah.
This game is entirely about the story and about the puzzle solving.
Yeah.
So spoiling is going to kind of ruin your experience.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge story game that I did not know really anything about the story at all before playing it. So, if you are interested and have not played it, very much pause us and go play it. We'll be here when you're done, and you can listen to what we have to say. Unless something more important comes up. Anyway, getting into it, obviously, starting with the setting.
Right. Before we get to the setting, I wanted to say, I don't know if you felt this, but not knowing anything about the story, and, the cover is, him with the scythe and his robe, and the name of the game is Grim Fandango.
Uh-huh.
So to me, I thought the game was about him as the Grim Reaper.
I actually thought, I think from clips I'd seen and hearing talk about it, and I don't know, even the name, I guess even before thinking about it as a noir-style thing when playing it, I thought it anyway, but to me, I always thought it was like a detective game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I thought you were a detective in the underworld. Like, that to me was what that was, and I was like, oh, that sounds cool.
Right.
Yeah,
any way you sliced it, it sounded cool.
Yeah,
and I was like, I'd be interested in checking that out.
Like, it's something that you don't think about a lot, but it is such a great named game.
It is.
Like, Grim Fandango to me is just such an awesome name that
what does Fandango mean?
I don't know. I do not know.
Interesting.
But it was just something that the name itself made me think that's an awesome game. That's kind of cool. But, as we mentioned, the game takes place in the land of the dead, which is it's based on, I believe, the Aztec concept of death, where there are 9 underworlds, and the Land of the Dead is the 8th underworld, which is where recently departed souls aim to make their way to the Land of Eternal Rest, which is the 9th.
Basically like heaven.
Pretty much.
Right.
Good deeds in life are rewarded by access to better travel packages to assist in making the journey easier. The best of which in the game is the number 9, which is a train that takes 4 minutes to reach the gate to the underworld. Souls who did not lead a kind life have to travel on foot, which takes 4 years.
Right. It's really interesting because the concept that what you earned in life carries over into death, it wasn't like their deeds, right?
What do you mean?
Like, it wasn't like how good or bad of a person they were, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought
No,
it was how rich they were.
No.
Oh, maybe I really misread that.
No, I don't think that was... I think that was a thing in Egyptian culture, just, like, they would be, like, pharaohs would be buried with their wealth.
Right.
I don't... No, here it was...
But, I mean, you're like one of the people who, I think... Because the first guy you talk to, or you deal with, like, he gets, like, a scooter or something.
He gets... nothing, I think. Oh, is he...
It was a cane, right? Like, he got something
like
ridiculous.
a walking stick?
Yes,
Yeah.
it was something ridiculous.
Well, or was he the guy that was put in a suitcase? Because there was a guy that gets literally shipped in a suitcase. It might be the first guy at the beginning or not. I don't know. But basically, because the journey takes so long, a lot of souls lose faith in the existence of the 9th underworld. They don't believe they can get there. So instead, they find jobs and they just live in the land of the dead.
Which is weird, right? It's like a second life.
Pretty much, yeah. I can... Death itself already has kind of hopelessness, and I can see people who aren't in heaven at that point just believing that they can't get there.
Right.
Then there are travel agents of the Department of Death who basically act as kind of Grim Reapers. They wear the cloaks, they have size for... I feel like in the game it's more for appearances than anything else. And they, talk to people, view their lives, and determine the mode of transport that they have earned. So in this game, the souls appear as skeletal Kalaka figures, which are popular, I believe, with like the Day of the Dead celebrations.
Right.
There are also demons in the game. I feel like they might actually be called speed demons. I don't know. But, basically they, like, one of the main characters in the game is Glottis, who is a demon who just wants to drive fast. I believe he is actually called a speed demon. Basically, they do kind of like mundane tasks like that. Also in this setting, it is possible for souls in the Land of the Dead to suffer death within death by being sprouted, which is being shot with these sproutella-filled darts that cause flour to grow out of the bones. Basically, it's like decomposing. Yeah, decomposing.
And then you die.
Yeah,
you're dead in the Land of the Dead, which brings up another question of what happens after that. Non-existence, confusing. That's why death is always a confusing thing, and when people try to tackle that and tackle it in these mythology types, there's still like so many unanswered questions about it.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is,
because really, it's like in real life, no one can tell you what death is like, what happens after death, because no one has experienced it.
Right.
And the same in this, no one knows what happens after death exactly because...
Or after being sprouted.
Yeah, because they're already in the Land of the Dead. I believe they'll assume that you just kind of are gone forever, but obviously you don't know exactly. So obviously, with the setting and everything, many of the characters are Mexican, Spanish, and occasionally, they'll like... The dialogue is mostly in English, but occasionally, like, they'll just throw Spanish words kind of into sentences, or say certain sentences in Spanish, which is basically what Spanglish is.
Right.
It's basically just when you kind of use both languages at once. Also, many of the characters smoke, which is a film noir tradition.
Yeah.
Because I, for one, love noir films.
Oh, of course, right. Yeah. And the smoke provides such a nice aesthetic.
Yeah.
And it really gets the tone for the characters.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's actually pretty funny. In the game manual, initially, it asks players to consider the fact that every smoker in the game is dead.
Right, so they can't get cancer.
Yeah, that nice little warning for you.
You're saying that warning is there to say, like, everybody who smokes is dead. I'm there to say, like, hey, you can smoke all you want when you're dead.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah.
Different strokes.
Yeah. So the story itself, the game takes place in 4 parts, each on November 2nd, over, like, 4 years. Which, November 2nd is Day of the Dead. Which I think Day of the Dead in Mexico is actually the 1st and 2nd of November.
Right.
But Yeah, either way. So you play as Manuel Manny Calavera, he's a travel agent in the afterlife in the city of El Maro. Or El Maro. I assume it's referenced to like bone marrow.
Right, that's what I
Yeah.
figured.
The reason he worked there is he says he's basically has to like he owes a debt to like the powers that be or something like that, and that's why he's doing it.
Yeah, it never really gets. That kind of like explains why he's working there at first, and then it's like never brought up after that.
Yeah, like he mentions
Even
it,
like
like
when
it's
he
more like.
decides to leave, he's just like, "Oh well, I can just leave. There's nothing holding me here."
Well, I think it's his good deeds made him worthy of leaving. Is what that's what I imagine.
Yeah, but I'm saying like we have to speculate because it never says.
Like he mentions it to the first, like in the first moment of the game, he mentions it to the first person he's talking to, and that's it. Like it's never really brought up again. But in part one of the game, he steals a client from his coworker Domino, because the way that the travel agency works is the like manager, boss, head basically like doles out clients to people. You can also kind of work to get your own. Kind of like I guess sort of how like a real estate agency works.
Yeah.
And basically, like Manny used to be one of the top guys there, but then for whatever reason, he's just been getting crappy clients who don't get good packages. And if you don't give people good packages, like travel packages, then you're like a loser basically. And Domino gets all the good clients, Manny gets nothing. So he steals Meche, whose real name I don't remember.
No.
He steals her as a client who she was really good and really charitable in life. A really good person.
Super nice woman.
Did like a charity with children and just basically like the perfect person to get that number 9 ticket. But for whatever reason, she can't like the system says she can only do the normal base take 4 years getting there path.
Right.
Which just really confuses Manny because he's like because he'd been doing this for a while, he kind of knows like he's like you deserve way better than this, but this is all you get. Like he feels bad about it. So then he ends up like after she decides to leaves on her 4-year journey, he decides to investigate and he discovers that Domino and their boss Don have been rigging the system basically to hoard tickets for a criminal boss named Hector La Mancha. So like upon discovery of this, Manny leaves the city. I believe he also leaves because he knows that they're gonna like they plan to get him. I don't remember exactly how, but he also leaves because he wants to find Meche and help her because he knows that she
should have been.
Yeah. So with the help of Glottis, who gets fired from his job for basically toying with a car so that he could drive it because Glottis is just a very big demon. The two of them end up in the forest. They go while in the forest. You find a secret entrance to a secret base for the LSA, which is basically like freedom fighters, and Sal, their leader. And then you arrive in Rubacava and wait there for a year.
Right.
So that like when you arrive there, you end up basically getting a job, like mopping up a diner, and then the game skips a year to the second part. And in that year, Manny becomes the owner of a small but nice nightclub, and he learns from another person, Olivia, who I believe is just a friend of his that he made while there, that his old boss Don had been sprouted, and that Meche had been seen in Rubacava on a boat with Domino. So then, through a whole series of events, Manny ends up getting on a boat, on a workboat,
right,
to go to the end of the world, which is literally what it sounds like. It's in the ocean. It's a giant waterfall.
Yeah, drop
that
off.
Just drop off, and who knows what's at the bottom of that.
Right. So now we're halfway through. Let's slow it down. In the first part of the game, I spent a large amount of time there when I was trying to figure out how this game works and how to solve these puzzles and whatnot. I talked to that frickin' guy with the balloon animals a billion times, trying to figure out what the hell he wanted from me before I finally eventually looked up what to do. I like these type of games, though. Yeah, it reminds me of Pajama Sam. You ever play those?
No, I did not.
You never played those?
I've never heard of that.
Pajama Sam. Those of you out there who know Pajama Sam are probably with me. But it's the same type of game. It was for kids, and I loved it, and I love these adventure puzzle solving type game.
Yeah, they're very good. To me, like it's kind of I kind of put it on the vein of a much more extreme version of Telltale games.
Oh, for
Because
sure.
Telltale games they're
This
not.
is like the better version of Telltale games.
I would agree because it's definitely a lot more challenging. Like Telltale games, there's nothing you really have to figure out too much because talk to everybody
You really just
and interact with everything.
Yeah.
Eventually, it all spelled out for you. But this game doesn't really do that. I mean, it's like talking to everybody helps. Like because they might mention something,
right?
But it's not ever as obvious. And even then, talking to everybody, there are some things that it's like you got to figure it out anyway.
Right. If you could, mash the two together and bring like the good things from Telltale, like the choices that affect the story and the different dialogue options and the relationships between the characters that can change. That and then the adventure puzzle style from this, I feel like would be a really nice game with all of these aspects.
Yeah.
So anyway, at the beginning, I kind of felt like, oh, this game is going to be about like a company rivalry between you and
Domino.
And Domino, yeah.
Yeah,
like,
at first
okay,
I thought
cool.
that's. I guess I thought. I thought that's what
I was kind of behind it.
I thought the game at first was basically you just competing for clients for whatever.
Right.
Like
and
I thought, I guess I didn't think the game would go anywhere. I thought the game would just be like, each section of the game would just be like, hey, find a client and help them get a good travel package. I thought that's what the game was.
Right.
And I really had no problem with that.
Right, and then when you leave, I'm like, I really don't know what's going to happen next.
Oh, yeah.
And then it skips a year, and that surprised me, because I was like, what the hell happened in a year?
Yeah.
And you come back, and now Manny is the owner of the nightclub, and he's this kind of big hotshot in this place, and, he has an assistant. I think that's who you're talking about. I think Olivia might be his assistant.
Is Olivia his assistant?
She might be.
I need to check.
But I enjoyed... I don't know what my favorite part of the game was, but I really did love the aesthetic of the nightclub. Like, it's the one... This one that had, like, the roulette, right?
Yeah,
stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. And Gladys playing the piano.
Oh, yeah. It was just such a nice aesthetic. Very noir.
Yeah.
And, the music in this game...
Oh, the music in this game is
phenomenal.
Fantastic. Very, very good.
Right. Yeah. So, after part 2, you go... You kind of like, he's waiting for Meche, and they're just like, oh yeah, Domino has her. And you go and you see him like dragging her onto the boat or whatever. Yeah. It's like through a telescope or something. And so you go after them, and you have to convince the captain of the boat to go, right? And so when you do that, you follow them off the end of the world. And so that's when your boat falls, and when you come back to, you're underwater, right?
Yeah. Also, I realized something. I just looked it up because I had a feeling Olivia is actually, I can't believe I forgot this, she's the owner of the poetry place in Rubicaba.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, because she's actually a semi-important character. I forgot about that.
Right.
Rubicaba.
Great.
And just anyway, back to what you're saying with you end up at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, at the bottom of the ocean. Which, again, like, this game just keeps turning my expectations on its head. I'm like, oh yeah, we can be at the bottom of the ocean. It doesn't matter because we're dead.
Yeah.
We're already dead. We shouldn't really be afraid of anything except for being sprouted, which is like a pretty unique thing. Somebody has to do it to you. It doesn't happen on accident. Unless maybe I thought it happens if you're very old, like you've been there for a very long time. I can't remember. There might have been something like that.
Yeah.
Anywho, so Manny follows them to a coal mining factory where Dom has Meche held to lure him. All the clients Domino had cheated out of their tickets are being used as slave labor. So you come across all these people, right?
People that should have been moved on to the Ninth Underworld at this point years and years ago for some of them.
Right. He captures Manny, right?
Yeah.
First, and then he offers him. Yeah, so after Dom captures Manny, and he offers Manny a position managing the plant, but Manny refuses because he's actually a pretty decent guy.
Yeah, it's something that like you learn throughout the game is Manny. He's kind of like that guy, which a lot of protagonists in noir films have that, where they're very like kind of like not necessarily gruff, but like a cold exterior. Where normal conversation, if you just had a conversation with the dude, you'd probably think like it's kind of like he only cares about himself. He's
right. They're prickly.
Yeah.
They're kind of selfish, but then like when shit hits the fan, they're always doing the right thing.
Yeah, Manny always does the right thing.
Right. So obviously he rejects Dom's offer to run this plant, and he rescues everyone and beats Dom by knocking him into a rock crusher.
Yeah.
Yes. I love the coral mining.
Yeah, it was a really cool location.
It was, and the whole time you're walking around, you feel like you have like that feeling of I shouldn't be here. They could catch me at any moment.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So when you free everybody, you find Meche and you. Does that mean you kill Dom? Did he officially die right there?
I'm pretty sure.
Right, okay.
Like, he's not sprouted, which I actually don't know. I feel like at the very least, he's incapacitated.
That might have been it. He might have been, like, trapped.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Anywho. So, after that, Manny and all the souls he rescued, all the people who were there working on that coral mining factory in Meche, and I think Glottis is still there.
Glottis is with them still.
So they all go and they arrive at the number 9 station. But the gatekeeper won't let them pass because they don't have tickets. It's also revealed that anyone with a fake ticket or one that they bought and, they don't own, they get sent straight to hell.
Yeah, basically it's a cheat-proof system because there are people who bought, like, when they get there, shortly after they get there are people who did buy tickets that were not good people that bought tickets that are on the train, and it just, like, it changes and goes send them straight to hell before they can, like, even react.
Right.
Yeah, very big cheating system.
Right. So, it's also revealed... Oh, no. So... yeah.
So then Glottis in this game is basically like Manny's best friend. He's always with Manny through everything that is going on.
Yeah.
He is dying because he is a speed demon, and he has to live at high speed.
But what about the year where he was playing the piano?
I imagine it was slowly affecting him throughout this whole time.
Okay, that makes sense.
Basically, ever since they got to Rubacava, he wasn't moving at all. Like, he wasn't moving fast, I mean. So then Manny, doesn't want him to die, obviously. So he builds a rocket, and Manny, Glottis, and Meche ride the rocket, which ends up taking them all the way back to Rubacava, which restores Glottis' health because of how fast it was. And then at Rubacava, you kind of do some investigating. I believe this is when you learn that basically El Morro has been taken over by Hector.
Yes.
And because of that, you decide that, you have to go back and stop him. I believe maybe you hear from Sal as well, like he asks you for help or something like that. Olivia might be the one who tells them about it because she ends up going back with you.
She betrays Hector.
She betrays Hector because I don't remember her relationship with him exactly at this point, but she basically just decides to go with you because she wants to help. She meets Sal and is instantly taken with Sal, and then she just kind of goes with him, and they leave you to do all the work. And at this point you've traveled back to El Morro, which is now called Nuevo Morro, and basically Hector runs the whole city,
right?
And it's a terrible place for anybody that is not super wealthy, pretty much. Manny ends up confronting him, and when it seems like you're about to beat him, you end up being betrayed by Olivia, who throws Sal's head at you, which he's still alive. Like, it's literally just his head.
Right.
But he is still alive because he's dead already. They take Manny to Hector's greenhouse, which basically is just where they're going to sprout him. But Sal sacrifices himself to take down Olivia. Basically, like, his head takes her down, and they both end up being sprouted. And then Manny ends up being able to beat Hector. And then, with the help of Sal's number 9 ticket, he ends up finding Sal's body.
He finds Sal's body in the trunk.
I think he finds the tickets in the trunk. Oh man, I can't remember
because they were in a suitcase.
Because the tickets were in a
suitcase.
Real tickets. And the tickets are attracted to the person they go to. So he uses the ticket to find Sal's body.
Right.
I don't remember exactly why, but then basically, he gets all the tickets, and so all the people who had been trapped working for years and Meche, all of them get to go on the number 9 now.
Right.
And then Manny, because of all of his deeds throughout all of this, ends up earning himself a number 9 ticket. And him and Meche go to the 9th underworld together, leaving Glottis behind because he cannot go because he's a demon.
Great story.
Yeah, and that's the game. We have very much simplified it, but it is a very good story. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
It was a great story. It had great puzzles throughout the game. You spend a lot of time in each of these parts, so we very much cut them down.
Yeah, very
obviously.
much. Mm-hmm.
But you do spend a lot of time, especially if you're not looking up and following like a walkthrough of what to do. You might spend hours and hours in these sections.
There are some puzzles that I spent a long time on, and even then, after a long time, I ended up having to look up, like specifically in year. I think it's like easier for people who grew up playing these types of games who already kind of know, because the way these games work is basically, a lot of ways to figure this out is just just try using stuff and talking to people, getting like as much as you can. And this is really, I think, the first game of that I think that I played, so I wasn't used to that. But it's like the one that I specifically remember is in like towards the end of year one, when you're in the forest, you have to basically you have to find this like secret entrance to, I think, the LSA base.
Right.
And the way you find it is you pick up this road sign. And then you take it to this one area that's just like this wide open field, pretty much in the forest, wide open clearing. And you have to put the sign down, and then the sign acts like a compass and points in a direction. And you have to keep doing that until finally you get place the sign in the right spot. The sign points straight down, like bends and points down, and then the garage opens pretty much. And I'm like, wow, that's like, I never in a million years would have thought to do that.
No. I had to look that up as well. It's just crazy difficult. Like, it's just, why? But then it's one of those things that after you do it, you're like, I guess I could see that.
Yeah, it like I said, it teaches you that if the game lets you take something,
it's important.
And two, if you don't know what to do, just keep trying. Try all the different items you have. Eventually, you'll find the right one. Right. Pretty much.
Right, so we went over a lot of the characters in our discussion of the plot, but the three protagonists, we have Manny Calvera.
Yes, Calvera.
Calvera.
Manny, who is one of my favorite protagonists ever, really. He was just, like I said, a really good guy for no reason other than just he was a good guy. He is voiced by Tony Plana, who is... I don't think he was a voice actor. I think he was just a normal Spanish actor. But to me, he did such a great job.
Oh yeah,
Manny's voiced very well. And I had read this when researching it, but in the game, the game was written by Tim Schafer and a team of mostly white dudes who don't speak Spanish.
Right.
So it's like, obviously they did the best they could to make it as authentic as possible. But it's still, there are some things that necessarily might have been weird, but specifically Hana, while recording the dialogue, he would kind of point out things, change lines, because he's like, it would make more sense for him to say it this way or this, which to me really very much upped that authenticity factor of how realistic his lines are.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because Manny to me is the most real character in this game.
Yeah.
Just like everything he says is so relatable. It sounds like something I'd say if I had his job in the underworld.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I would argue that he goes through a dynamic
character change.
Yeah,
I think it's really more like he was always a good person, but he was just kind of bitter about his situation.
Right.
And then throughout wanting to help Meche and everything, he becomes like...
I mean, at first he's not that great of a person, right? He's taking advantage of people.
I guess at the beginning he really only, the entire reason he steals Meche from Domino is just because he wants
to get one over.
He wants to be better positioned in his job, better, more favor.
And he hates Dom.
But it's through helping Meche and everything, he becomes a good person.
He does.
Definitely a different character at the end of the game than at the beginning.
Right. So then we have Meche.
Yeah.
Who just all throughout the game is just a nice and bright person.
She gets mad at Manny.
Yeah.
I remember thinking she was just kind of the normal, just, woman character that he's helping.
Like a damsel.
Damsel, pretty much. But then, at the end of year 2, when you, encounter her, she's, really mad at you.
Yeah, she's feisty when at the coral mining factory, or...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you encounter her a bit like in the small cutscene before then.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the first time you know, she is not happy with you,
Right.
and like it really takes like kind of a bit of convincing, improving on his point to get her on his side.
Right. Right. Again, like I didn't feel like she was phoned in at all. I thought she was a great
Oh, she was very
character,
good.
well written, but still, to me, the highlight of the game was just Manny.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Yep. Yeah. I was kind of back and forth on Glottis. He's kind of, he's like a sidekick character.
Mm.
He's also like for the most part, he's kind of like just there as comic relief.
Yeah.
Which sometimes I found him funny and enjoyable. Other times I did not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's kind of like his whole things were usually hit or miss with me.
Yeah, I was pretty much the same way because when I was like, oh, this guy's gonna stay with us, I was like, oh no,
Oh,
you know,
I had that same,
we're gonna be
I had that
stuck with this
same,
guy.
I had that same reaction. Like the first, we have him like for that, like when he first helps you and stuff, and I'm like, man, hope I never see that guy again.
Right.
And then you encounter him in the forest, and I was like, oh, okay, this is gonna happen.
Right. And then, but at the end, you know, I'm like, I like Glottis. You
Yeah,
know,
no,
he ended on a good note.
Yeah,
I
he
like.
was a good dude. And at the end of the game, when like Manny's sad about leaving him because that's his best friend,
Right.
and I'm like, yeah, no, it kind of sucks. I would like it was something that even when like at the beginning of year 4 when you first get there, which obviously I knew that stuff was going to happen, the game wasn't going to end there.
Right.
When it was like, I remember thinking, I'm like, wait, does like gonna go with you? Can he do that? Because like
I knew he wasn't gonna be able. No, but I knew. I agree. It was sad to me.
Yeah.
That they
Sad
had to
part.
split up. Yeah,
Mhm.
because he grew on me.
Yeah.
You know. All right. So we spoke a little bit about the antagonist.
Yeah, we really did not give them
As much attention.
Yeah, I feel like maybe a bit of confusion there because two of them have very similar names.
Yeah.
Which is Domino Hurley. He's like May's coworker and kind of nemesis at the Department of Death. He's that typical, like successful coworker that knows he's successful and you're not, and he's just a dick to you about it.
Right.
He's a huge jerk, and he's but he's also kind of like just like a lackey.
Yeah,
like
right.
I think he kind of like thinks he's bigger than he is in like the eyes of like Hector, who is the main villain.
Right.
Like I feel like he thinks like him and Hector are like up there as partners, but I very much felt like Hector probably just thought of him as another dude.
Right. Yeah. Then we had Don Copel.
Don Copel.
Don Copel was
Copal.
Copal.
I feel like Copal because it's Spanish. Copal sounds like more Spanish.
I can't remember, but he's Manny's boss.
Yeah.
The hypocrisy of Don Copal's dictatorial leadership becomes clear when the player breaks into his office to discover that he has rigged his intercom to tell his secretary, Ava, that he is busy and must not be bothered whenever she tries to contact him. In reality, he climbed out his window to participate in the Day of the Dead. Don is a loud, mean boss, right? Mm-hmm. He's always shouting, first of all. You know, he's shouting at Manny, he's shouting at Ava. He talks about how Manny doesn't do as good a job as Domino, and it's Manny's fault, you know?
Yeah, he very much like, he puts you down for not being good, but then you're like, you're not good because he's purposefully making you not good.
Right.
But he, like, at the end of the first year, gets sprouted, so he's...
Right, yeah.
He's of, like, those three, he's in it the least.
Yeah, that's true. And he's just in there for that first part. You don't even see him that much in the first part, you know, because most of the time he's out of his office because you're going in there.
But I was surprised when he was killed, though. When he was sprouted. I did not expect that.
Yeah, and it was just a throwaway line, right? Yeah, they're just like, oh yeah, Don, he's dead.
No, there's a cutscene. You see it happen.
Was there a cutscene?
He's the first actual sprouting that you witness.
Okay, okay, right.
Yeah, and then the main character, main antagonist,
right.
Hector Lamans, which I should apologize, I called him Hector La Mancha earlier. I honestly don't know where I got that from then. Basically, he's like a crime boss, which I very much assume that he was also a crime boss in real life, like before he died, I mean. Because that's just very much the kind of character he is. He eliminates anyone who opposes him, or anyone who outlived their usefulness, which is basically kind of what happened to Don Copal. He's basically like the top dog. He's not really in the game too much. Like up until year 4, it's kind of always just like what he's he's bad. He's kind of like
they just talk about him. And like Hector.
Mm-hmm.
Hector this, Hector did that. But he's scary, right? Because
He's
he
a
was a
scary
criminal
dude.
in life, that's known, and he's a criminal here. He'll eliminate anybody,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're useful or opposing him.
Yeah, yeah. There's also Olivia. She is, she basically, like we said, she in Rubikava owns like a little poetry bar place.
Mm.
She ends up betraying you, which completely caught me off guard.
Mm.
Because she very much is kind of like that. She's like a hippie kind of person.
Yeah, it surprised me too.
Yeah, and I thought she was going to be.
I thought she was cool.
Yeah, I thought she was going to be cool, but she ends up betraying you. She ends up, killing. I guess not. She's the reason Sal's dead. She took his head, sprouted his body, and everything.
Yeah,
and
that counts.
Yeah, and she just honestly, she's probably my least favorite character in the game, mainly because I love Sal so much, and she's the reason he died.
Sal was cool.
Yeah,
he was the rebel leader.
Yeah, Sal Limones. Salvador Limones. Yeah, he's the leader of the LSA, which is the Lost Souls Alliance.
Right.
Basically, for like going against kind of the. I believe he just knew the system was rigged. Like he was just in charge. Very charismatic dude. Very patriotic, and yeah, I loved him. He's just like he was constant positive energy. He was all about the cause, and I really hated when when Olivia threw his head back at you. I was so upset.
Oh yeah. He's like the rebel leader.
Uh-huh.
He has like this awesome secret agent kind of vibe, but also in charge. And he is, like you said, he's always positive. He's always nice.
Mm-hmm.
He's always nice to Manny. He wants Manny's help. He respects Manny, and he's funny too.
Yeah, Manny's considered like a legend in the LSA, and Sal was like absolutely just really has a bunch of respect for Manny, even before Manny respects himself at all.
Right.
When Manny first encounters him, he talks about Manny and talks about how good he is and stuff, and Manny's like, nah, you got the wrong guy. I'm not that type of person. But,
right.
Yeah, he's just nonstop positive dude.
Right. And you're right. When he died, it was tragic. Because this is not a game where I thought a character I really cared about was going to be killed. Because for me, it was I don't care if Mitchie dies or not. I care about Manny, and I care about Sal.
I absolutely cared about Mitchie. But I definitely, I would say it probably it would have upset me less if she had died.
I expected her to die.
Yeah, no, I expected her to get through because she's like the love interest, Yeah, but
I don't know. You can't you have to expect the unexpected when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Yeah, especially film noir thing, which is I guess really the big thing that shocked me about Olivia's betrayal was because she wasn't really too she was a bigger side character, but you saw her in year 2, and it's you talk to her a bit. She tells you about Domino and stuff, but she's like the girlfriend of this other smaller crime boss guy,
right?
And then that's it. You just leave, and I'm like, oh, she was kind of cool, I guess.
I thought she was against the system. I thought she was a rebellious type.
Yeah, she very much comes across that way.
Yes, that's why in my mind I was like, she's safe. She's on our side.
And then I think even she says she just likes powerful men, and Hector being the most powerful of them all, she very much goes for him.
Yeah, she does say that.
Yeah. There's also Velasco, who is basically a ship captain in Rubikava.
Oh, yes, he's the ship captain who takes you
to you end up getting on his boat. He's a cool guy. He's not in the game too much, but he was different. He was kind of like that old, wise sea captain, kind of advise you a bit.
Right.
But I liked him. He was cool.
I did like him. It's the classic old captain type. They're just lovable. All their one passion is the sea and their boat. Mm-hmm. And, when you're on the ship, you follow their rules. It's their crew. It took him a lot of convincing to help, if I remember correctly.
Well, basically, you had the entirety of year 2 is just being able to get on his boat. And he basically, is well, this series of events would have to happen for you to end up on my boat. And
you go make that happen. Yeah. And he's like, well, we'd also need this, and you go make that happen.
And he's and finally he's I guess.
Yeah, whatever. And then Chipito?
Yeah, Chipito. Who he is basically, he when you land at the bottom of the ocean, which is called the Sea of Lament,
Right.
he's just there. He's just walking around. He's kind of dressed like to me like a miner kind of guy. He's got a light in front of him because it's pitch black
Yeah,
in the
the light
ocean.
is like that fish from
Yeah,
is
like
that
an angler
Finding
fish.
Nemo?
Yeah, Finding Nemo.
Is that
fish.
what they're called?
I believe so.
See, to me, I've just always called those Finding Nemo fish with the light. What
Yeah.
doesn't? Is it Dory? They're like the light, and they're
Yeah,
around
yeah, Dory Marlin. Yeah, yeah.
Anywho, so we all know that fish. So that's kind of how his light is, and I definitely feel like it's an homage to the angler.
I feel like, yeah, because there are also anglerfish are found buried in the depths of the ocean.
Exactly. And these guys I thought these guys were kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he ends up, he just kind of ends up going with
right?
you. Yeah, he talks. Because he's kind of like, he's been alone for years, so he's kind of crazy.
Yes.
He ends up with you. He ends up, I think, at the end of the world with you.
Mm.
I don't remember. I think he ends up on the number 9, but I'm not entirely sure.
I'm not entirely sure about that either.
Yeah, it's like
this. He might stay in the sea.
Mm-hmm.
He might leave you when you get to the coral mining factory.
Yeah.
So those are the side characters.
Yeah.
What do we got next?
Yeah, this game doesn't really have a lot of, to be huge side characters, because a lot of them only appear in like a year or two, but they're all, I think, fun.
Of course, there's a lot of NPCs with throwaway lines, but not enough to have, like, memorable.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there are even a few that, like, a little more that I can... Like, there are, like, whenever I think of this game, there are always a few side characters I mentioned. Those 3 I always think of. And also, I didn't list him, I don't know his name, but there's, like, in Rubikava, when you go to, like, the morgue, the guy who's in charge there, that guy is very memorable.
Like, I can't remember what that guy's name was.
I don't remember, but I just remember, he was very, like, kind of doom and gloom, this is what the world is.
Yeah, but he's the one, you go back to him a few times. Yeah. He's like the coroner.
Yeah,
because that's where you find a sprouted body, and he talks about that, and that's where you learn a lot about sprouting and stuff like that.
So this was a puzzle-solving game, puzzle-solving adventure game, which that was a staple of the 90s, and LucasArts especially was one of the best developers of that genre.
Yes, did not pay well.
Did not. They sold recently well. This game was published on the tail end of that, when they were kind of declining in popularity, and it's kind of, I think, the like lack of success in this game is when it was finally like, okay, yeah, I guess these are on the decline. They're not, we got to move on to something else. Right. Yeah, so I think 98 maybe was the year around then. The year Doom came out and first-person shooters really started becoming big.
Right. That's
probably wrong.
That's probably wrong, but
that is very much probably wrong.
But you're right. Everything just has its heyday.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, this is a genre that dominated the 90s, and then it was done.
Right. The basic concept of these type of games involve, talking to characters, listening to what they have to say, and then finding objects throughout the world, and you carry them with you and use those objects to solve puzzles. Solving puzzles involves inventory management.
Yeah.
I guess.
I did look it up. Doom came out in 93.
93. Yeah, close.
I was not close at all.
A game, I would say, that came out recently that's like this, and this is a series of games that I might say, like the puzzles in Resident Evil.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, Resident Evil 7. Because Resident Evil has always actually been a game about inventory management, because you don't have a lot of carrying capacity in that game.
So you played Resident Evil 7, didn't you?
I played it a bit, yeah.
Yeah, did you get like to the dog's head puzzle and stuff like that?
I got in the first 2, but then I stopped.
Okay, yeah. That's like halfway through the game right there. And it seems very early when you're playing it, but it really like goes downhill from there. But yeah, like that's the same type of thing where you have these things in your inventory and you use them.
Sometimes you combine them and
right, exactly.
Yeah. Like I guess really the most recent game I can think of that came out. I don't know exactly what year it came out, but it's obviously newer than this game. Would be Goosebumps the game, which even less than this is
Goosebumps the game.
It was a good game. It was that was like a point and click adventure. You didn't really see your character at all, even though it had you pick what you look like. But it's it's like that's the same thing with like inventory management, but this one
it made you pick what you look like.
Yeah, you basically I think you picked either you basically picked like boy or girl, but it had pictures of the character, but you never see yourself at all. I think
it's just for dialogue. Then.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a fun thing. I definitely I hope it's really kind of up in the air because of LucasArts closing down. I don't know who owns the publishing rights to any of their old games.
I don't know, but I
like
know
Monkey
Tim
Island
Schafer
and stuff.
fought really hard.
Really hard to get this game because it's his, like I said, it's, I think in his opinion, it's his like crown achievement
Right.
of stories and games and stuff.
Yeah. The thing is, a game like this only works if the story is good and the dialogue is good and the characters are good and the voice acting and music is good.
That is correct.
If you don't have any of that, then you have nothing.
Yeah. Like it's like in a game like this that isn't quote unquote like game action heavy.
Right.
Yeah, you basically, there's so many different like pieces that make up the puzzle that is a good video game. But it's like all of those pieces really are kind of optional. But it's like the less pieces you have, the better your pieces have to be for it to be good.
Of course.
If you have a game where there are like 30 different things to take into account, if 25 of them are good and 5 are not, then you could be like, oh yeah, it was a good game. Like I didn't like these things about it, but it was a good game.
Right.
But this, like everything had to be good and everything was great.
Right.
Also, one of my favorite things about this game is there are multiple dialogue options. It's not like it's not an RPG or like you don't affect the outcome of the story or anything with these dialogue options. It's basically just it gives you hints and it helps you learn more about characters, about situations. Everything, including what Manny says, is all fully voiced, no matter what dialogue option you pick, which I love, and which to me is something I hate about modern games, modern RPGs with multiple dialogue options when the character doesn't talk.
I mean, I agree and I disagree. I agree that it's better when it's fully voiced, but I disagree in which games like Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas even, where they have really long dialogue options with great branching trees. Fallout 4 and their newer games, not much, but
well, see, to me,
I understand how it can be hard to get fully voiced for all of that.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely, probably most likely it's like a money saving thing because it's especially like in games like Fallout, like that's a lot of lines.
Right.
Voice actor would have to be paid a lot of money to do that, unless you want to get a crappy one that has no experience, or like in some games, like the developers themselves do the voices, and those are usually not the best. But yeah, that's just always something that bothered me about those games, because to me it takes me out of it when there's like a conversation going on, especially like a very important heartfelt conversation, whatever, and people are talking back and forth, and they're like, oh yeah, and then like, what do you think?
And you're like, you pick the option, and they're like, me too.
Yeah, I really.
It's just there's no immersion.
Yeah, it really just kind of takes it out a bit. But then this.
It's certainly not game breaking either. I'm not like, this game is trash.
Oh, absolutely.
I still give it a chance.
I mean, no, some of my favorite games I've ever played do have that silent protagonist, but I do absolutely enjoy it more when the character is voiced out, especially if they do have a voice actor. Like there's games like where the main character doesn't talk, but they have like they do grunts, or they do they maybe say like just a catchphrase, something like that, during like an attack or something like that.
Right.
Like Dragon Ball Xenoverse is the big one I can think of, where you're like they have you pick a voice, and you do your like ha's, and you maybe like say the name of your attacks and stuff. But
that's it.
Yeah, like that's it. Like you already are paying a guy to make these sounds. Give him some lines.
Right. That's a special case because you have the multiplayer aspect to think about there.
Yeah, it's like I said, like that's not like
because that Dragon Ball Xenoverse I would almost classify as an MMO.
I suppose.
And MMOs, you definitely can't be paying for all those voice lines.
Yeah.
And you have multiple people who are basically like everybody's going through their own story, but together. And so you can't have everybody saying things,
Yeah, no.
That's where it gets complicated. But you're right. There's plenty of games.
Well, even then, though, there are games like Borderlands kind of did that, though, where you can be playing online with multiple people, but it's like you only hear the dialogue addressed to you and what your character says in response. Like you don't hear what all the others say.
Right.
Which that's I guess a way you could do it, but
I'm not a fan of Borderlands anyway.
I am not either, but that's still like they do that, so I'm like I'm saying that's just a way.
But I support it.
Yeah,
I support it for what it stands for.
Yes,
and I think it's great in the world of gaming, but I personally don't enjoy it.
Yeah, I had a bad experience with the first one, so I don't. I just never got back into the series after
It's just
that.
not my type of game. I don't like looter shooters, dooter booters, whatever they're called.
Oh yeah, I enjoy them just fine, but like I said, just bad experience made me not care for it.
I like the Telltale one though.
Yeah. Oh no, of course. This game was very engaging. I definitely I wanted to keep playing this game just to hear more dialogue. Like I always just loved hearing the characters talk, and like every line of this game was done well. There was never a single line I heard, which I heard a lot, that I went, I could have done that better. You know, they were all performed very well. The characters are all very well done, and the story was just so good that it really would always frustrate me getting stuck on things, which is why I was faster to resort to looking up solutions in this game than I normally am, because it's like I just want to know what happens. It's like I think this puzzle is cool, this gameplay is cool, but I'm kind of hanging on the edge of my seat here. Give me the story. You know, there's also a pretty cool little feature in this that it's like I didn't think about it while I was doing it, but kind of like read about it afterward and thought, oh yeah, that was really cool. Which was Manny, like it doesn't like highlight objects that you can interact with, kind of like a Telltale game does, or like have it doesn't have anything that specifically shows an object can be interacted with, but Manny physically in the game turns his head to look at things, and that's how you can tell if something can be interacted with.
Yes, I noticed this in the game.
It's like I remember noticing him look around at stuff, but
you thought it was random?
I mean, no, I saw he was looking at actually just looking at specific things I walked by, but I thought he looked at more like monuments, like just. Right. I didn't put together that it was only the interactable objects he was looking at. I thought he would just look at any kind of thing that would be like, oh, like to me it was like he was looking at it in the same way that like any normal person would be like, oh, look at that, you know, like. Right. I thought that's kind of what it was. It wasn't just that I was like, oh yeah, they were specifically the interactable objects.
Yeah, right. So for me, it was like I noticed him looking at the guy with the balloon animals in part 1, and so like I would leave and then I would go back into the area and he would look at him again, and then I would like walk over to the right, and when I got out of like a certain range, he would look away, and so I was like, okay, it's things I can interact with, and that's just how I And then like in the alleyway, he was also looking at the rope to climb. And I was like, okay, it's not just people.
Yeah. So I did get the platinum trophy in this game.
You did?
I did.
Wow. I did not.
Yeah, it's a rather easy platinum. Most of the trophies just involve exploring dialogue objects and interacting with maybe specific objects in specific ways. You can get most of the trophies in this game just by talking. Like everyone you talk to, just keep talking until there's nothing else to talk about. Because the trophies are all named after specific lines, and you have to get like once a character says that specific line, that's when you know you have it.
Right.
And the way you do that is by doing that. There are a few that it's like you have to interact with an object, or you have to use this specific object in this way that you probably wouldn't think to do because they're not necessarily required for story or anything like that.
Right, most of them are pretty simple.
Yeah, like a notable one would be the Robert Frost balloon that you can have the balloon maker make for you.
Oh yeah.
If you because you have to use the balloon to like scare birds on the roof. If you try to use the Robert Frost one, Manny says like, "Oh, look out, birds! It's Robert Frost," and that's one. That's like I never would have like without knowing that's a trophy, I never would have done it. And there's another one like when Goddess is playing a piano, you have to like kind of roundabout get this sheet music and give it to him for him to play a specific song. In Rubicaba, at the very beginning, you can actually, if you walk down to the end of the dock from right where you begin, and you press like not look but interact with the moon, like Manny and Velasco say this little poem that is very beautiful to listen to, and that's one as well. So it's always cool stuff.
But I didn't know about any of that.
Yeah, no, it's all really cool. There is one notable trophy that I hate. I hate it so much, which is called The Right Way. Which the description of this trophy is play the whole game with tank controls. Tim demanded this trophy. I very much assume that Tim is Tim Schafer. He is the original creator of the game, head of Double Fine.
It says Tim demanded this trophy in the trophy?
Yeah, in the trophy description.
Oh, that's interesting.
The reason why I very much assume, I did not look it up, but just going by the name and everything, the original game was probably used tank controls. Which, if you don't know, tank controls, it gets its name from like the way that old school tanks worked, which basically is if you push left, your character turns left. If you push right, your character turns right. If you push forward, he walks forward. Push backward, he walks backward. Mm-hmm. So like literally you can only walk in one direction at a time. You have to turn your character to face that direction before walking. It's annoying. I don't think that I had ever played a game with tank controls before this. So it took a lot of getting used to for me because like I'd be holding like forward and right trying to move in that direction like on like the analog stick and stuff. And like I'd just be standing there turning in a circle. Right. And I would be getting so pissed off. I'm like, move! But then, so I wanted to switch to the directional pad, which would have made it so much easier. But yeah, it's definitely a little annoying when moving around. Mm-hmm. Like it's like if I ever, play this game again, I'm never doing it with hand controls.
Right.
Yeah. So, any specific favorite moments for you?
Favorite moment. It would have to be sprouting Hector.
That is very satisfying.
Yeah, it was satisfying because you're like, the whole time you're like, sprouting is killing somebody. When am I going to be able to sprout somebody? And I really, for a long time, I was like, I really don't think I'm going to be able to, but we did. Mm-hmm. And it was satisfying.
Yeah, I think probably part 2 of the game was my favorite part in Rubikava.
Yeah.
Just because it was a very cool city, very cool location, very beautiful.
It was the longest, right?
It took me the longest to do it. It took me the longest to do it because it's also the most open of at the very beginning when talking to Velasco. Yeah, at the very beginning when talking to Velasco, he basically tells you everything you have to do, and that's it. Like in other moments of the game, it's kind of like, especially like the first year, it's very sectionalized. This is what you're trying to do at this moment. Right. Do this. But this is like literally, it's just like, hey, you have to do these 4 things. Come back when you're done.
Right.
And yeah, but it's very, very. It was very enjoyable, very cool to do.
Yeah, it was a nice city. Yeah. So like the aesthetic, the music of all the different places you could go, and all the people, like there were the most
a lot of people to interact with.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what definitely made Rubikava the most interesting setting for me. Mm-hmm. As far as what we didn't like about the game, is there anything you didn't like about the game?
Oh, there is something I did not. I have to tell this story. So when I played this game, I loved it. I loved the story. I loved the characters. I loved the setting. I loved the music. The one thing I absolutely did not like about this game, and I was so mad about playing, was how slow you moved. Because you cannot run in this game. And you don't walk fast. So anytime you had to, like, Rubikava is a big area. Anytime, like, I'm at this place and I'm like, oh, great, I have to go back here. That's going to take 37 seconds to walk back, maybe longer. And I hated that. Really annoyed me. But I beat the game. And this is actually completely coincidental. But we started playing the game, like, at the same time, pretty much. Like, I played it, and, like, a week after I had started, I walked in on you playing it. Mm-hmm. Which I don't remember if I had beaten the game yet. I was close if I hadn't. But I walked in on you in Rubikava.
Right.
And you were like, hey man, I don't know what to do. Like, I can't do anything.
How many times I came to you and I'm like, I don't know what to do in this goddamn game.
Well, you're like, I don't know what to do. Like, I was, because you're like, I know what I have to do, I just don't know how to do it.
Right.
And I actually had encountered the same issue when I was playing through the game. And I told you, and I was like, okay, you have to talk to this guy. Mm-hmm. And you were like, yeah, I tried talking to that guy. And I was like, yeah, you have to ask him about this. And he was like I can't. It's not an option. And I was like, okay, you're doing what I did, which at the beginning of the game, when you talk to Velasco, even if, like, it's kind of like in the conversation, he tells you what you have to do, and then you have, like, the options to ask him what you have to do about each of the 4 things, like, specifically. If you don't ask him about each thing specifically, you can't do that thing. So, like, I had talked to him, and I, like, once again, like, I had looked up a guy because it was like, talk to this guy about this thing and mention this thing. And I was like, I talked to the guy and I'm like, I literally, like, I only have one dialogue option now when I talk to him and it's goodbye because, like, there's nothing else. And so finally, like, I went back to him and literally exhausted every dialogue option with him and then went back and I could talk to him. And I was like, okay, that's kind of annoying, but sure. So, I'm watching you and I'm like, oh, okay, what you have to do is, you have to talk to Velasco, and you're like, yeah, I did that, I know what I have to do. I was like, no, you have to literally say every possible thing you can say to Velasco, and then you can do that. He was like, okay, I don't know where he is. And I was like, oh, okay, I remember. Like, exit this building. And you just took off running.
Right.
You took off running towards the exit of that building. And I was like, whoa, wait, stop. You can run in this game?
Yeah.
And you were like, yeah, did you not know that? I was like, I played through the whole goddamn game walking. the whole time, so slowly, just to learn after I had beaten it that you can run in this stupid game.
Yeah,
And,
that's something you have to know.
yeah.
Most games in the 21st century,
Yeah. Well, this game wasn't released in the 21st century.
It was remastered in the 21st century. Tim said, put that run button in there.
Well, it might have been in the original. I don't know.
It might have. But I think it was the L1 button.
I don't even know because I never did it.
Yeah, I think it was the L1 button. It was a weird button. But I just I always try holding every button and running.
See, this game is the reason that I started doing that.
Yeah.
Because there was even, I think, before I had played this game, there was another game that I encountered a similar kind of issue with. But even then, it was like, in that game, which I imagine is a game we will talk about on this podcast later, so I won't get into specifics with it, there is something that you learn what to do, but then I forgot you could do it. Like, I remember, it wasn't until, like, I was at the end of the game, like, last hour of the game, that I was like, oh man, I forgot I can do this.
Right.
Like, I remember learning it, I completely forgot. And so this wasn't even the first time I had that experience.
Right.
And I was so just frustrated when I discovered that.
Yeah, I thought that was hilarious. Because that was like the first thing I tried to do. Like, I was pissed when I had to go down the stairs in the building in the first part, and I was like, there's not a fin run button in this game? Hell no. And I'm like, sitting there pressing all the buttons, I'm like, okay, there it is, and now I'm flying. He's running, he does that big step run, too. You know, Manny's little...
Yeah. It really sucked because... Like, Rubikava was such a big location. Like, a lot of these places are bigger.
Like, I could not imagine.
A lot of walking. Like, I probably, like, doubled my playtime of this game just because I was walking everywhere.
That's insane. Yeah, I cannot imagine playing through it just walking.
Yeah, it was annoying.
All in all, though, fantastic game.
Fantastic game.
Especially for free.
Oh, yeah. No, it was... I think the game, when it first, like, was remastered, was, like, $20. I think it's absolutely worth that much. It's probably even cheaper now, but it's absolutely worth $20 if not.
Oh yeah, it is a fantastic game. You know, I would probably give it like a 9.
Yeah, I'd say
something like that.
At least an 8.
Yeah,
not higher.
You will probably need a walkthrough. I'd be impressed if somebody was able to figure out all those puzzles without a walkthrough, because I was getting stuck like every 5 or 10 damn minutes. I tried to play through the game multiple times. Like the time I finished it was the second time I started it from the beginning, because the first time I got fed up with a puzzle.
It was also actually, funny enough, my second time playing through it. I don't think it was I got stuck the first time. It was just like I started it, and then not long into it, a game had come out that I've been wanting to play. So then I started playing that, and then I just never went back to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about it?
If you play it, make sure you run.
Make sure you run. It saves half the playtime.
Yeah.
For sure. Exhaust all the dialogue options.
Yeah, if you will, yeah. Because it's also like, it's not even that annoying to exhaust all the dialogue options because they're all delivered so well and they're all so interesting that I had no problem doing it.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
But click on them all.
Alright, I don't think there's really too much more to say about Grim Fandango.
No, you can do the closer.
Alright. So, yeah, that's all we got to say about it. Definitely recommend anyone play it. And that's it for today. And we'll see you guys next game.